A groundbreaking NIL deal with LSU and Nike. We've got the details locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. And thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 podcast network in the world. LSU on Thursday, in conjunction with Nike, announced a new NIL initiative through Nike and LSU. It's Nike's Blue Ribbon Elite NIL program. Now, this is one of those things where LSU and Nike have been partnered together now for parts of 5 decades, where Nike has handled LSU's, but the new agreement goes through 2036. It'll be parts of 5 decades. Whenever you think about Nike and the brand deals they have with schools, they could have started this anywhere. Turn on your TV on any college football Saturday, and programs that are running out there with the Nike swoosh on their jersey, Nike could have started this program anywhere. But they decided to start it at LSU. Why? Because LSU is a gigantic brand with athletes that are gigantic brands that also have an NILSU Max program that LSU has put together that have made this conducive for both the athlete and for the business, in this case, Nike, something we have been telling you about. Let me give you the particulars first. So it's the Nike's Blue Ribbon Elite NIL program. This is the first of its kind. It's basically going to be a portfolio of athletes across many different sports. And as they say, they're reimagining the NIL space. So this is a different level of collaboration. There are 10 LSU athletes that start this program in all different sports. Kalen Chio of gymnastics, Derek Curiel from baseball, Tori Edwards from softball, Kason Evans from baseball, Trey'Dez Green in football, Jaden Havener from softball, Zakiah Johnson, women's basketball, DJ Pickett in football, Journey Robinson in volleyball, and DJ Thomas in basketball. So those are the first 10. And this is going to go beyond LSU and beyond just these 10 athletes, but this is where Nike chose to start. Now, I want to remind you as well that this is something that, I try every now and again to drop little Easter eggs, like Taylor Swift and all of her videos. If you're paying attention, if you remember, go back with me. I did an episode that if you're an everydayer, you've seen it already or listened to it, and shout out. But if you're new, I would strongly, highly recommend you go check out this episode, because I did this episode the day after Lane Kiffin's contract leaked. It was a Saturday, so the terms of his contract leaked on a Friday. That Saturday, I did an episode kind of going through the details of the contract, but also why LSU's NIL approach was so significant for Lane Kiffin. I said this that day. Nike, I was told, just did a 3-day, 15-hour per day shoot on LSU's campus with some of the student athletes that will be compensated for their time and their deals as part of NILSU Max that facilitated. These are valid deals, but LSU was so proactive. So remember, I told you about this Nike thing that's almost 3 weeks ago now, that this was coming. But what's really important about this in particular is this is an illustration of true third-party NIL. I want to explain this again because I know a lot of you understand this, but some still are confused. The commitment to spending money on your roster is no longer as simple as just saying, we went and fundraised for our collective, and boosters put $20 million in the collective to spend on the football roster on top of revenue share. It's no longer like that. You can't just fund a collective and write checks to student athletes. It has to be true third-party NIL, where student athletes are compensated for their name, image, and likeness. And every one of those deals over $600 has to go through a third-party clearinghouse run by Deloitte. So those people at Deloitte have to say, yes, this is a valid deal. So if you were given a running back $500,000 who's never done anything, only to sign an autograph, that's not market value. That would get rejected. So you have to have true third-party NIL deals that can get approved. It doesn't matter if you put a bunch of money on the table. If you can't funnel that money to the student athletes, it's worthless. And I've told you for weeks and weeks, that was a major concern that Lane Kiffin had when he was going through this process, is that in this new age of NIL, his concern being at Ole Miss was that college football was going to revert to the blue bloods having all the leverage because they're the ones with the big brands that can get NIL deals done. Well, this is a great example and illustration of it. Remember, in Lane Kiffin's introductory press conference, I asked him the question, how much did the NIL plan, the strategy that LSU had, how much did that weigh into your decision to pick LSU? And remember, he said that, I'm going to play this clip for you, a part of it anyway, but he said he didn't even know the terms of his contract. What he wanted to hear were, because because the money was going to be great, whatever it was. He wanted to hear what the plan was to get the student athletes money.
It was very important and very critical. And Verge and his team had a really, really good plan, and even talked to some donors that are part of that plan here to see exactly how does that work. And there's a great plan here. There's a great plan of how we can come together with what we bring and what players around the country want to play for us and play in our systems, and then have that support to be able to do that so that they want to play for us and they get taken care of financially, which obviously nowadays is the world of college football, and it's very important and critical to them, which it should be. And this was the best setup. So that definitely played a factor into it, because I don't care what your systems are, without good players, they don't work. So I actually asked today about my contract, not the numbers, I still don't know them. And I said, hey, just in case I get asked on it. And he said, basically, all four were extremely similar, okay, contracts for me. But in the process of figuring out the NIL packages, those were not similar. Those were not the same. And that's a big part of it.
It's why Lane Kiffin ultimately is here. Because Nike, which could have done a deal like this with any school that it has a brand deal with, Nike could have started this anywhere. And they started it in Baton Rouge. And it's not just because LSU is a big brand. Alabama's a big brand. Georgia's a big brand. Southern Cal is a big brand. There's tons of big brands all over. Texas is a big brand. These are all Nike schools. But why did they pick LSU? Because LSU has the brand. They've got the history and the proof in there, where we talk about the national awareness of players like Angel Reese and Flau'jae Johnson and Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And you could go on down the list of Olivia Dunn and Paul Skeens. It's every Shaq still. It's everywhere. You know, LSU, Mondo Duplantis, Lolo Jones, Sha'Carri Richardson, go in the non-revenue sports. It's everywhere. So, but LSU also has the structure in place. And, you know, I hear a lot of people gripe about the clearinghouse, but it's one of those things where you have to commit to being able to do the legwork as an athletic department, to have that department, that NIL department, which LSU does, to be able to facilitate deals for your student athletes, to be able to fulfill the contracts and the deliverables and the agent discussions and the payments and all of that sort of stuff. That is a lot of work, but LSU's committed to having that structure in place so they could say to Nike, listen, here's how we do it. Boom, we have this in place. We have the whole brand department of LSU athletics, which is in South Stadium. We can facilitate with all the equipment we need to do all the deliverables as far as the content that it may be. And then we have the people in place to do contracts and make sure the payments are facilitated and the taxes and like all of the stuff. LSU is so proactive in putting that structure in place that they're light years ahead of others. And when you couple that with the brand of LSU, that's why Nike starts this program here. And as I'm told, the initial announcement of the 10 athletes, that's just scratching the surface of what's coming with this Nike deal. So there's another tiny Easter egg for you. So make sure you're locked into LSU social media here in the coming hours, days, because there's more that's going to be coming on this Nike deal, and excited to see what it's going to look like. But that is a giant reason why Lane Kiffin is here, that LSU has the opportunity to do brand deals, legit third-party NIL brand deals like this better than other schools now, so he can go be aggressive in the high school ranks, in the portal, and get true NIL deals done, so that way he'll end up with the best roster possible to go win, which he didn't think he'd be able to do at the highest level at Ole Miss, and why ultimately he's at LSU instead of Ole Miss, Florida, or any other school. So buckle up for that. Now, one of the other big questions that a lot of people have is whether or not Frank Wilson will be a part of Lane Kiffin's staff, as that's really one of two big dominoes left to fall. And we do have an update, and we'll share that with you next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap up. It's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. You can add a personalized message right inside the frame, so the gift feels thoughtful the moment that it's opened. And packaging comes gift ready. There's no price tag. There's no wrapping needed. That's a huge win for me. I still don't know how to wrap a present. I pay my niece to do it. It's a holiday gift that actually gets used, so it's not, forgotten in a drawer somewhere. For a limited time, you can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, when you use the promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. And we're brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. NFL Sundays, they move fast. One big play, suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, the momentum flips after a turnover. I personally love to watch the opening possession of the game to see if you have line movement, and then maybe bet where there's value early in a game. But you figure that out for yourself. FanDuel lets you jump right into those moments with live spreads and money lines adjusting instantly. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. There are two significant staff decisions still to be made for Lane Kiffin. One is what's going to happen on the defensive line, which we've talked about. It looked like LSU had a deal done with Elijah Robinson. Football Scoop reported it was done, and it ain't done. Clearly, as he's still looking at the possibility of Nebraska or Penn State. Keep an eye on Chris Kiffin, Lane Kiffin's brother, who is on staff as an analyst for the past 2 years at Ole Miss and is 11 years experience in college and the NFL coaching defensive line. That one would make a lot of sense. The other is running backs coach, and we've talked about this a bunch, and it's the most interesting for a lot of people because of Frank Wilson. And I think almost unanimously, the LSU community would love to see Frank Wilson retained because he's a great guy, he's a great leader, loves Louisiana. He's a phenomenal recruiter, the New Orleans area where you have to have the foothold. We all understand the importance of having Frank Wilson on the staff. So we'd love to see that. But Lane Kiffin, as we've explained, is very loyal to his running backs coach, Kevin Smith, who's been with him the last 9 seasons. 3 years at FAU, the last 6 years at Ole Miss. And when Lane Kiffin flew here 2 Sundays ago, Kevin Smith was not on the plane. What we reported, though, is that a day later, Kevin Smith's wife and son were in Baton Rouge. As a matter of fact, at Lane Kiffin's introductory press conference, sitting right next to Knox Kiffin was Kevin Smith's son. He and Knox play high school football together, and their families are very good friends. And throughout the last 2 weeks, it has certainly felt like all the momentum was that Kevin Smith would ultimately be joining LSU after the college football playoff. Remember, Frank Wilson, while all these other staff decisions have been made, they eagerly got a deal done with Blake Baker. They announced that they're retaining Jake Olson and Kevin Peoples and Corey Raymond. Like, all those deals are done eagerly. If there was an eagerness to retain Frank Wilson, that would be done. And then this week, Frank Wilson, on the first media availability in advance of the Texas Bowl, was asked about his future and said this.
Well, that isn't something that we've had Well, that isn't something that I mean, we've had conversations, and for me and for Coach Kiff, it's let's play this game on the 27th, and we'll go into those details later. We just want to finish what we've started with this football team, with the team of 2025. Give them our undivided attention before transition happens, and so until then, nothing will necessarily happen in that regard. There'll be opportunity there. Where that lies, I'm not sure. But the priority is our current football team.
That was a very non-committal response from Frank Wilson, which led me, you, a lot of people to think, man, that doesn't sound like a guy who thinks he's coming back, right? Well, there has been an interesting twist here. Just in the last 24 hours, Michael Katz hat tip from the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. I want to make sure that I get proper attribution here. Michael Katz did in fact obtain binding, this is the headline of it, binding memorandum of understanding between Ole Miss and Pete Golding. So this is effectively Pete Golding's term sheet to be the new head coach at Ole Miss. I don't think anybody actually cares what the numbers are there. But what's interesting is that Katz notes that he also received term sheets for John David Baker, Jake Schoonover, Brian Brown, Matt Kitchens, Jay Shoup, John Garrison, the offensive line coach, who Lane tried to recruit here as well, Randall Joyner, Joe Judge, Wes Neighbors, and Kevin Smith. So Kevin Smith has signed, if it's the same as Pete Golding's, what is termed a binding memorandum of understanding. What is the terminology of the term sheet? I don't know. But Kevin Smith has signed according to this reporter, has signed an MOU, a term sheet to stay at Ole Miss. Pete Golding on Thursday met with reporters in advance of the college football playoff, was asked about two guys, Kelvin Bolden, who's now gone back to Ole Miss. He was on Kiffin's staff at Ole Miss last year, followed Austin Thomas here to Baton Rouge. In Baton Rouge for 5 months now. He's back at Ole Miss. Pete Golding said, KB and I have a great relationship. I loved his energy and passion when he was here. I think LSU was a pit stop. He also went on to say of Kevin Smith, quote, he is all in and focused. I have no concern on where Kevin's mind is. So does that mean Kevin Smith is planning to stay in Oxford? It would certainly stand to reason. If he has signed a binding MOU, a term sheet to stay at Ole Miss, the coach is saying he's all in and focused and he's coaching through the playoff, it certainly feels like it's leaning that way. Now, can Lane Kiffin continue to make his pitch to Kevin Smith to try to get him to Baton Rouge? Sure. But when you're this point and you had a handful of assistants already come to Baton Rouge, Kevin Smith stayed and now has signed a term sheet to stay at Ole Miss under Pete Golding, it feels like maybe that's shifting. And my goodness, would that be amazing news? I've said it before. Kevin Smith may be a great coach, and every head coach has the autonomy to hire their staff, and Lane Kiffin can bring who he wants here. But I don't know Kevin Smith. I know who Frank Wilson is, what he means to LSU football, the program, to recruit New Orleans and to coach the running backs and the relationships he has with these players, this team, recruits. He's an important dude. I mean, it's why a big part of why around signing day there was so much ambiguity with Richard Anderson and with the guys from New Orleans and with Lamar Brown. They wanted to know if Frank was going to be here. It's important. It's very important to maintain those relationships, and nobody better. I'm not saying Frank Wilson's the only one that can recruit New Orleans, but there's no one better to have those relationships than Frank Wilson. So if you're able to retain him on staff, even if this means a win for Ole Miss to keep Kevin Smith and they perceive it as a win, great. I'd rather that. I'd rather Kevin Smith stay at Ole Miss and Frank Wilson stay at LSU. And maybe here, finally, it feels like it might be starting to trend in that direction. As we get more development there, we'll certainly keep you posted right here on Locked On LSU. Hey, thanks so much for making this your first listen. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU. It's your team every day.